The Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, Lord. Jesus said to his disciples, "When the Advocate comes, whom I shall send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, who issues from the Father, he will be my witness. And you too will be my witnesses, because you have been with me from the outset. I have told you all this so that your faith may not be shaken. They will expel you from the synagogues, and indeed the hour is coming when anyone who kills you will think he is doing a holy duty for God. They will do these things because they have never known either the Father or myself. But I have told you all this so that when the time for it comes, you may remember that I told you." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So now we are almost coming to the end of the Eastertide. So we are preparing already this Sunday for Ascension. It's supposed to be on Thursday, but it's pushed to Sunday. And then eventually we are going to celebrate the coming of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, which will be on the 5th of June. So we begin to hear the kind of vibes in the Gospel today about the Holy Spirit, Jesus promising his disciples that he's going to send an advocate, the Spirit of truth. It has been very difficult for the disciples of Jesus, the apostles of Jesus, right from the very beginning. But they have come to a point where they believe in him, they trust in him. Remember in John chapter 6 already, people had left Jesus because he was talking about him as the bread of life. And he said to them that whoever would have life must eat my body and drink my blood. And many people left, but the apostles stayed on. They were convinced of everything that he taught them. And they were convinced by his works also. But then it came to a point, they had left everything. They had believed in him until they left everything. They left their walks of life. They left even their families, and they followed Jesus. And now, in chapter 15, now we hear Jesus talking about, "I'm going to send an advocate to help you." An advocate is a helper, and that is the Spirit. But there are things that he says here that are very heartbreaking. He tells the disciples, the apostles, that I tell you this so that your faith will not be shaken. Now, when you are in a situation where somebody tells you, "Please, I want you to sit down. I want to tell you something now. Please hold yourself together. I'm telling you this so that you will not be afraid. Please, just hold yourself together before." From the very beginning, you get tensed because you know this is not going to be any good news. So Jesus starts with that. He says, "I tell you this so that you may not be afraid." So he is preparing them for a message he's going to give them. And then they sit and they're listening, and then he goes on. "They will expel you from the synagogues." Now, the synagogue was a central place of worship for the Jewish people. And to be expelled from the synagogue is like, for instance, today you are excommunicated from the church and you are told you are never going to be a Catholic again. Just tell me how you would feel. And it's not the Jews who are identified with their religion. You could not separate them from their religion. So to be told you'll be taken out of the synagogue was bad enough. But listen to what he says later on. "And indeed, the hour is coming." Remember, they believe in Jesus so much. They believe in his word and they know what he says is true. And just imagine you are the one being told this. And he says, "And indeed, the hour is coming when anyone who kills you will think he is doing a holy act." It's enough. And it's too much for the people to take. It's too much for the apostles to take. To hear that they will be killed. And not only that, they will be expelled from the synagogue and they will be killed. And people who would kill them will rejoice that they are doing something worthy. It's so difficult for them to take at this moment. They had left everything, they have left their family. But at this moment, are they going to withdraw from Jesus? Are they going to go back to their ways of life? Are they going to go back to their families? No, they do not do that. Jesus told them, I'm going to send you a helper. Now, from the human point of view, this is impossible. This is an impossible, a senseless, a foolish course of life to take. To know that if you continue to follow this person, this is where your life is going to end. You are going to be killed. And of course, most of the disciples, except John, most of the apostles, except John, we are killed in a very terrible act. But then something we would say happens to them. Even at this moment, they do not totally understand what Jesus is talking about. They do not even understand what their mission is going to be. But then, even after Jesus was killed, they do not really understand what is going to happen. They do not even understand. They even get heartbroken because they thought Jesus is going to save them like Moses saved the Israelites from Egypt. And that Jesus is going to save them from the hands of the Romans. But this does not happen because Jesus is killed. They do not understand that. Even after the resurrection, they believe, okay, this Jesus is superhuman. It's something that he has done that has never been done. But they do not even understand the power of the resurrection until they receive the Holy Spirit. And when they receive this Holy Spirit, everything in them changes. We even hear Peter is rejoicing for having been beaten, for having received the persecutions that he received in the synagogues. Paul was writing all the letters while in prison. Something had changed in them. And that is the power of the Holy Spirit. From the moment they received the Holy Spirit at Pentecost in Acts of the Apostles, chapter 2, everything changes in them. The same spirit that the prophet Ezekiel talked about, that when this spirit gets into the dry bones will become human beings. The same spirit that Mary received at the birth of Jesus, at the Annunciation, you will be covered with the Holy Spirit. What is in you is through the power of the Holy Spirit, and everything in the life of Mary changes. This is the same spirit that we receive at baptism, but there is a problem. Why is it that we don't have the same courage like the disciples or the apostles who went out and they were ready to die for their faith? They were ready to die for what they preached. It is not enough for us to be given to receive baptism and have the baptismal certificate. That is not enough. St. Paul says that we must fan into flames the spirit within us. In other words, we must put this spirit into practice. It has already been given to us, but we must take it. We must receive it. We must stretch our hands and receive. If we are not ready for that, then we would just be, okay. Remember, St. Paul also received the Holy Spirit when he was on the way to Damascus. Jesus came to him. He was converted. But it is only when Ananias came and told him, receive the Holy Spirit, and then that Spirit became active in him. Think about the house of Cornelius, okay, baptized, and then they received the Holy Spirit. It is the same thing with us, Christians, that it is not enough for us to say that we are baptized. No, we must fan into flames the Spirit within us. And how do we do that? We must be committed to our relationship with Jesus through a life of prayer, through a life of penance, through a life of seeking a personal, not a communal, a personal relationship with Him. It is not enough, therefore, to just come to church and say, okay, I fulfill the obligations of coming for Mass on Sunday. That is not enough. We must try to find the Spirit within us. God has all sent us as missionaries. He gave us the commission and He said, go make disciples of all nations. It might not mean that you must travel out of the country to be able to do that. You can do that in your family. You can do that in your place of work. But how to do that? You must be able to carry that which God Himself has given to us, the Spirit. Because by our own strength, we cannot do it. The prophet Zechariah says, it is not by power, it is not by might, it is by the Spirit of God. So if we are to be messengers of God, then the Spirit must be active within us. If we must be able to stand up to the challenges that we have in the place of work and speak out and be a light to others, we must have the Spirit within us. If we can be able to stand up in our families and stand up and correct and stand up and do things that are right, it must be through the power of the Holy Spirit. If we must even have a time of commitments to prayer, praying for our children, praying for our family, it is nothing but through the power of the Holy Spirit. So we must fan into flames the Spirit that we have received already. It is given to us, but we must take it. We must take it. We must stretch our hands and receive it. And we can only do this through the life of prayer, through a sacramental life, through living a life of penance, praying a rosary every day, going for confession when you know that you've sinned against Him, and doing everything right for the sake of the kingdom. My dear brothers and sisters, Jesus promises us the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And this gift we will renew on the day of Pentecost. We must then therefore begin to dispose ourselves to receive this Holy Spirit, to fan into flame this Spirit that has been given to us, that we may be made more and more aware of it, and that the Spirit may take action in our lives all the days that we live in this world.